Hey, everybody. Jason Walker here for YouRulz. And with me, as always, the five-star co-star himself, Mr. Aaron Bland. Hello, Aaron Bland.
Hey, Jason. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you, man. I can't believe we're already a quarter. Well, not a quarter anymore, Aaron. The fourth end of the fourth week used to be the quarter pole of it, but now we have an odd mathematical aberration where at some point this week we'll cross over the halfway mark as we go to week 5 with a 17-week season. It's crazy to even think about that.
Yeah, but usually at this point, you can determine how good or terrible your team is. Usually after that first quarter, if you got a bad team, you can look ahead to the misery that's coming.
Yeah, I've definitely been on both sides of that where because you and I played in a home league for forever. And there were seasons, well, most of the seasons, you and I were in really good shape throughout, dominating our home league as we typically did. But there were a couple of really memorable stinker seasons. One of mine in particular. I knew by week 4 I was going to struggle to even not finish last in the league. I remember 2001. I think that Spurrier first year with the Washington franchise was my particularly stinky season. Do you remember any of them that stand out to you where you got to this point of the season? You're like, oh man, do I need help on the waiver wire going forward?
Well, my first championship was in 95. And then in 96, I had just an absolutely miserable, awful year. I believe you won it all that year, but
I did. I dominated. That was the Larry Centers, Barry Sanders, Terry Allen had a huge year for the Washington franchise, and James Stewart of the Jaguars. That was Larry, Barry, Terry, and Stu lineup. Yeah, we dominated that year.
I was flying high after
special.
Championship, and you followed up with a non-playoff hideous season. So
right.
That's frustrating because we talk about how long the off season is getting to the NFL. Getting to the NFL season, you finally get here, and then you put together a lousy team. It just stinks.
Yeah, well, if you are in this position where you don't feel like you're very strong, then making the right lineup decisions are going to be critical for you because there's no margin for error. And one of the strategies that I like to take a look at when I'm trying to decide between players to start, if you're not in a deep league, Aaron and I used to be in a really deep league where you rarely had the opportunity to really make a real flip a coin decision on starters. But if you did, I like to take a look at my competition and try to figure out, is it a week where I can play the guy with the higher floor, or do I need somebody, if I'm going to play someone to spike really high? We saw, for example, Mr. Ruggs last night with the Raiders is a great example. We're recording this on a Tuesday. Monday night was the Raiders were playing on there, and Ruggs is a great example of that. A guy that could really just go bananas with a couple of deep passes and help you spike up for a week versus maybe somebody that has a higher floor and gets more kind of a possession receiver type that would do that. So this is critical, and we're going to take a look now. Week 5, we're going to go position by position like we always do. Remember to check out YouRulz and check out the type of information. We'll do our rankings every week that's posted, so to help you with kind of those in between decisions, or maybe in some cases if you're in a more shallow league, you may have to make a choice. Robert Woods or somebody that, even though Woods hasn't done much, did get in the end zone last week, or maybe somebody that has a little bit more of an upside for a particular week. Now this week, Aaron, week 5, we start off with a barn burner on Thursday with the Rams going into Seattle, and the Rams on a short week. Do you ever kind of take that into consideration for that? The Rams are playing on a short week. They're heading into Seattle. Of course, Seattle is too, but they're at home on that. But it's a great Thursday night game to start off the week here.
Short week on the road, and of course the Rams got run ragged by Arizona.
Yep.
That great defense got really whipped up on that Cardinals team. Boy, they've been a hoot.
I know.
Really, I like the Seahawks more than I normally would playing the Rams. I think Russell Wilson's looking at a big, it's hard to, let's face it, it's hard to run on the Rams. Russell Wilson, though, I think could be looking at a bit of a bounce back week. He's been a little bit quiet the last couple of weeks, but I like him a lot more than I would normally like him against the Rams this week at home.
Yeah, it's a great point, and that's a great instinct, Aaron, because the game opened on the betting lines as Seattle a 1-point favorite with a 48 game total, 48-point game total, and they have now the Rams are a 2.5-point favorite in Seattle, and the total's gone up to 54.5, which would indicate exactly what you're talking about. Vegas thinks that Wilson is going to have to throw in here. And so a potential bounce back week. And I think Seattle's kind of off the radar, and especially playing on a Thursday night. Make sure you get your lineups when you get your lineups and you're in a season long league. Make sure you set your lineups. And if you had a Seahawk or two on the bench last week, or you forgot, make sure you have them in there and active this week for sure. All right, there's other good game environments out there. The Sunday night game is a particularly good one, Aaron. The Buffalo Bills came on. Maybe one of the best. Football Outsiders said it was the most dominant defensive performance they'd recorded. Just a huge week for the Bills defense. But Aaron, they're going to be challenged this week because they will be going into Arrowhead Stadium and the Kansas City Chiefs there. So big game total on this one. Chiefs are favored by touchdown, which means neutral site, even toss up. What do you think there? Buffalo, can they hold up? Yeah.
They aren't facing that rookie Mills this week. I looked at the box score for that kid. That's his name, isn't it? Mills. You'd have to be desperate to be starting Texans right now. What was his line? It was there was 4 picks. I mean, it was
brutal.
It was awful. I don't know what Houston is going to do, but okay, back to the Bills. Bills are obviously the Bills are a Super Bowl contender. There's no question about it. And this is really a great preview game of two of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. And the Bills defense, if you want to be challenged, well, you go into Kansas City, you're going to get the biggest challenge you can get. Generally, my general rule of thumb is that no one really can slow down Mahomes. That was always the rule of thought until late last year. A few teams managed to slow him down a little, of course, and then the Bucks beat up on him big time in the Super Bowl. The Bills aren't going to shut out the Chiefs. Let's start there. But if anyone can slow him down a little bit, it's that defense. But I'll tell you, Jason, it would not surprise me in the least if Buffalo goes in there and wins that game. I think they're hitting their stride a little more. Josh Allen started a little bit slow. He doesn't seem to be slow anymore. They're using both running backs, split pretty equally in Singletary and Moss. They're using all their receivers. Even one of my sleeper picks, Emmanuel Sanders, I thought had been really playing well the last few weeks. Nice sneaky sleeper pick for anyone still sitting out there, especially in a game like this. Emmanuel Sanders. Look at him to possibly get in the end zone this week. Tell you the truth, Jason, I like him. How can you not like Josh Allen and Mahomes? That's easily the game of the week to me.
Yeah, the Football Outsiders, I quote them a lot. I love their metrics, advanced metrics. Buffalo is the number one defense in the league and defense adjusted value over average. That's a DVOA. Very good stat, which kind of levels things out as competition goes. They're number one. The Chiefs, however, are the number one offense. So it remains to be seen what happens. The Chiefs also boast the dead last defense. They are the best offense and the worst defense right now in football. It's pretty hard to believe, but it'll make for entertaining time. All right, let's look at the position by position here. We'll take a look at what's going on. And you do mention we look at quarterbacks, and you do mention what a matchup. Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen in the same game, should be obviously very interesting. But one of the other guys there. Well, let me just ask you: is there anybody that kind of jumps out beyond that game, jumps out at you as somebody you may not expect to jump in there, or somebody that could threaten them for top spot quarterback of the week?
Trey Lance. How about that, Jason? Garoppolo gets banged up. No surprise there. Now, I just read that they're desperately hoping he can play this week. I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
Lance comes in for a half and puts up pretty good numbers. Yeah. Then they're playing Arizona. They're going to have to keep up. Lance, assuming he plays the whole game, he could put up some eye-popping numbers this week, Jason. He's a very tempting player to want to start, assuming he's got the start.
I think if you have a weaker QB1 in the mix, that, or somebody that's in a tough spot maybe this week that you may think twice about playing if you were playing maybe Derek Carr already and you're going against Chicago. I think that great point, Trey Lance. I mean, that's the kind of thing, you remember all the running quarterbacks give you that floor in there, usually week to week, unless you have a game like Justin Fields had a couple weeks ago, brutal. But yeah, Lance, very interesting. Arizona, like you said, going to be pace up, and should stay busy. And I don't think that if Garoppolo is unable to go, if he's able to go, then he'll play, and then you don't have to worry about it. But Lance, if he's the starter, I think that'll be interesting to see what kind of numbers he can put up for a full game. I did have him on our preseason quarterback list, a guy to pick up. So that just goes to show, first of all, be in a deep league, have a deeper roster so you can take lottery tickets like that out there. And, you didn't have to wait too long to maybe begin to cash in on Trey Lance. Anyone else jump out at you during the week?
Most people had Fields as a better prospect than Lance, at least this year. But of course, the Bears don't seem to be allowing him to run at all,
right,
for whatever reason, handicapping him there. I don't know if they're just telling him to stand back there and take sacks or what. I don't think the Niners will have any restrictions in that sense. So Fields, I think, was the better prospect for a lot of people. I would take Lance over Fields right now myself for the rest of the year, to tell you the truth.
Yep. Agreed there.
In terms of any other quarterbacks jumping out, possibly, taking a quick look at the schedule. Ooh, Aaron Rodgers facing your Bengals. That's always.
I just thought that's exactly the one I was looking at there. Nice, thick 50.5-point total. Packers favored by 3, but we know that Rodgers is just a mutant quarterback and will throw no matter what. So
you talk about some lesser names though. How about Daniel Jones? Throws for 400 yards last week. Here they are going into Dallas. They're likely going to have to keep chucking it around a little bit, and that's 400 yards without his top 2 receivers.
Right.
Good to see Kadarius Toney get in there.
Yeah, man.
We'll mention him, but everybody, your studs you're going to play.
That's
right. If you're in 2 QB leagues, which you should be, or are looking to find some sleepers, someone like Daniel Jones jumps out at me here.
Yeah, I like that. And Joe Burrow too. On the flip side of that, if we believe the Packers are going to push, that Rodgers is going to be able to score on that Cincinnati defense, then you're going to know that Joe Burrow is going to throw. However, we have seen that Burrow, they've limited his amount of dropbacks so far this year, not zipping it around as much. That offensive line, maybe not as stout as they'd like. He's still taking hits, which is probably why they're limiting how many times he drops back. I know they'd like to throw more, but Joe Burrow is a capable thrower. He's got definitely has the ability to do that with Jamar Chase going deep down the field. Should be an interesting game. I do like that one for both quarterbacks. So, in two QB leagues, like Aaron was saying, or even said, if you got a weaker one that you may not want to play this week, feel free to do that. And of course, if you're playing YouRulz with substitutions, you can just make sure you have one of these guys ready to go in case somebody like, I'm taking a look over here. If Tom Brady's putting away the Dolphins early or something like that, you can slide that in there. So we're good. Let's move to the running back position. And who's your leader over there? Who do you like this? It's pretty funny how flat things have kind of been beyond maybe the number 1 guy this year.
Well, if we want to talk about, guys that aren't obvious, like, Derrick Henry, how about Cordarrelle Patterson? 3 touchdowns last week.
Yeah.
Receiving. I mean, if you're in PPR leagues, and most of us are, I mean, his week was just absolutely huge. They're still throwing Mike Davis in there, letting him get, his 2 yards of carry, but they're using Patterson all over the place, and they may continue to increase that. And here he is playing the Jets this week.
Right.
I'll tell you something, Jason. You've got to get him in lineups this week. I don't see how you can keep him on the bench right now.
It's just funny. His snap count is not starter level, but when they use him, it's intentional, and he's getting a lot of high leverage play calls, and teams, for whatever reason, have not adjusted yet. So I think that, there'll be a time where teams adjust to the Falcons and see how they're using Cordarrelle Patterson, and they'll flip that around. But for now, he's certainly taking advantage. I think what's happening in Atlanta is that teams are really this happens in the NFL. They'll get a narrative early in the season, before the season, and they'll write it. So right now they were like, oh, we're going to take Ridley and Kyle Pitts. They're really overplaying Kyle Pitts, the rookie tight end, overplaying. It was exactly what teams did to Reggie Bush when he came into the league. And I mentioned that in our preseason kind of look at Kyle Pitts, that teams could overplay. But what's happening is that teams are overplaying, and Patterson, who's always had tremendous speed, is exposing those overplays. And the Falcons are doing a nice job the last couple of weeks, taking advantage of that for sure. Much to the dismay of everybody who thought Mike Davis was going to be a workhorse and Kyle Pitts was going to catch a ton of passes this year, and Calvin Ridley was going to benefit from Julio Jones's thing. All right, so Cordarrelle Patterson, that's it there. Anybody else there?
Oh gosh. Saw David Montgomery went down for the Bears. He's going to be out over a month.
You hate to see that too, because he finally, last year he started to, with all the stuff with Tarek Cohen and everything, he was really coming into his own. You might have drafted him as a solid RB2 coming into the season, and and he's certainly putting his mark on things and getting into a rhythm, and in a pretty stale Bears offense. But now, what are your thoughts on Damian Williams?
Gosh, I'll tell you, I'm not real high on that Bears offense at all, especially if they're going to handcuff Fields back there. But Williams is going to get the ball. I mean, I think he's going to get at least 15 touches this week. If you're in a pinch, put a guy in, he's going to get the ball. Do they even have anybody else, Jason, down there?
It's pretty thin. It's pretty thin there. Now, if you were looking at a flex start and you were choosing between Williams at Las Vegas this week or Tony Pollard hosting against the Giants, who would you put? Who would you do in the flex there?
That's tough. I mean, they have started feeding Elliott the ball a little more, and he's been playing better. Maybe Pollard lit a fire under him to, pick up the pace a little bit. I think Williams is going to end up with more touches, but Pollard may end up doing more with the ones he gets. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring in that Giants game, Jason, and believe it or not, I think I might play Pollard. I have so little faith in the Bears even sniffing the end zone much at all.
Yeah, I think you bet on game environment. I think there, and certainly they've been, Tony Pollard's not cleanup territory. He gets high leverage carries in there. Even though you're right, they have been using Zeke Elliott just a little bit more, but super interesting. Now, if you're in a standard league, if you join one of the standard leagues across the industry, and you're hard coded to 2 running backs, and you look at Kareem Hunt's on your team, and you didn't draft him to be the second running back, but is he almost an auto play at this point?
I think so. I think he can be treated like a regular starting running back almost. In fact, we know he's going to get the catches, but he's getting more and more carries, and didn't even get a goal line carry last week, which is, if you're a Chubb owner, is rather frightening, because that's one thing thought you had a handle on. To me, Hunt is a must start right now. If something happens to Chubb, Hunt launches into the top 3, I think, in the NFL, Jason.
Incredible. I agree. I think he's even if you're in a 10-team league, I think he's an RB2. I think he's a top 20 running back right now, the way that the Browns are using him, and certainly game flow. He's protected in that. I think he's good in any game flow for Cleveland, where you're right, Chubb, if it's a passing thing, they just don't use him. They just don't use him as that. Now, in my initial run for the week for rankings, I have James Robinson in the top 15 running backs this week, Aaron, going against Tennessee. However, there's some things going on in Jacksonville, if you may or may not be aware of. Who would you have to use further down the list to start if you believe that or do you just start James Robinson against the Titans?
Well, I guess that depends on who else I have on my roster.
Right. That's why I
Well,
say I'd have to go
that's-
down. Would you put Miles Sanders? Would you start Miles Sanders at Carolina over Robinson?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Miles Sanders seems to be on his way out. They keep dialing back his usage a little bit more and more. Kenneth Gainwell is another guy who's picking up steam, seems a little bit.
Memphis, from Memphis,
Who knows? In the second half of the season, maybe Gainwell's the one getting 20 plus touches. It wouldn't totally shock me. It seems like he's really squandered his opportunities there in Philadelphia. But
surprising,
Jason Robinson's going to get 20 touches this week. I don't know what he can do with them. That team is really distracted at the moment. They almost won. They almost beat your Bengals. I mean,
they had them.
It was another punch in their stomach, and then the Urban Meyer stuff it's just that team's lost 19 games in a row or something. It's just it's
they
incredible.
were within a touchdown in 3 of their first 4 games. They've been within a touchdown of playing and had the lead in a couple of them. Certainly had the Bengals dead to rights, last week and last Thursday night and let them off there. Let me ask you, would you, for James Robinson, would you play Cordero Patterson over him if eligible at running back? If you have Patterson
this week I would against the Jets.
All right.
If the Jaguars just win a football game, who knows? Maybe the whole kind of demeanor of the team changes a little bit. A win might. I just think they're just so beaten down. Some of the people on that roster haven't won a game in a year and a half. They desperately need to beat somebody.
Yeah. Let me give you one more and we'll move on to wide receivers. Now, if you have Nyheim Hines, now they're in Baltimore this week, so it's a potential passing environment, which we like Nyheim Hines in passing environments. Would you play Nyheim Hines over Clyde Edwards-Helaire in that Kansas City Buffalo game, but having to go against the Buffalo Bills?
I would not.
Okay.
Our buddy Clyde has been better, Jason.
Yeah, my guy.
The last couple of weeks, he's making the most of his touches. And I think if nothing else, I don't know how much Kansas City is going to try to actually hand off this week, but I think he's been catching a lot of balls out of the backfield, and he's the kind of guy he can score. He's the kind of guy he could have 3 touchdowns in a game. He could, right. Much bigger upside than Hines.
Yeah, I agree. I think you bet on game environment. That's kind of a trick question there. I don't like betting on if I have to choose and it's a low scoring environment. I would rather go with the guy that I think could have that up. But again, that's where you're looking at floor versus ceiling. If I'm in a game where, I have to get the guy that might score 3 times, that's not going to be Hines in Baltimore. So congratulations to Nyheim Hines on his 3 touchdown game coming up here. Now that I said that on there. So, all right, let's move on to wide receivers. And we know the top guys. And Aaron, we saw a classic Tyreek Hill 3 TD explosion in here. And no matter that it's Buffalo, you have to keep playing them. And we saw Justin Jefferson score a touchdown. But overall, I thought that Vikings-Browns game was left a lot to be desired. I thought there was going to be a lot more scoring in there. A surprise entry into the top 10 receivers. Maybe not a surprise to some. You and I had him ranked pretty well, but DJ Moore in that Dallas game, showing strong signs. I think he's a wide receiver 1 at this point. So if you didn't draft him thinking you had a wide receiver 1, I think you have to consider him that right now.
Oh shoot, he's been one of the best receivers in the NFL this year. Yeah. Consistently, boom, boom, boom. There, he's getting 10 to 15 targets a game. Yeah, and that's good matchup this week at home against the Eagles. He's an absolute must start, but I think that's a no brainer. Now, if talk about the Bengals a little bit, Jason, Higgins is going to try to practice this week. I don't think he'll be ready, or if he does, he'll be limited. So Tyler Boyd is in picking up the slack, and Jamar Chase. Yeah. I like both of those guys. If Higgins is out, I like both of those guys against the Packers. Chase is really, Higgins getting hurt, I think was good for Chase, kind of forced him to step up a little bit because they were a little bit worried about him, but he's done well. But I think Higgins is going to be out another week.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way the Bengals have played without him means they don't have to rush Higgins back. I think, if that makes sense, I think they have enough around there pass catching wise to make it work. And I agree with you. And that's why I think Joe Burrow is Could be a starter if you're in a deep league, if you're in a 14 teamer or something like that. I think Burrow could start this week. In that, I think he'll be a top 14 quarterback. I like that game environment with trying to keep up with Aaron Rodgers, and certainly those guys benefit, from that. Brandon Cooks pops pretty well for me against New England, Aaron, this week, but I don't know, man. He's not a play for the weak of spirit, I would have to say there. But
against Belichick's defense. He's the only guy that crappy quarterback throws to. I will say that there's only one. It's tunnel vision. That's Cook. No one else exists on that team. But boy, that's a risky one, Jay.
I was trying to look at a good versus on there. Would you? I think I would do this, but I've got him ranked lower this week. But Allen Robinson, Allen Robinson with the Bears at Las Vegas, or Cooks in a revenge game. Aaron, it's a revenge against the Patriots this week for Brandon Cooks. Which one would you do?
I'd have to go with Robinson, just because I don't like Cooks against Belichick's defense. Yeah. I just don't. But I mean, the Bears offense is also seems to be a neutral a little bit. If they let Fields, let him run, let him, turn him loose. I think they could actually put more points on the board. Let him run around. Let him, Arizona lets Kyle Murray roll out, run around, make plays. Let Fields acts like he's Peyton Manning. He can't move back there. And what in the world is that, Jason?
I know. If you wanted Drew Bledsoe, don't draft Justin Fields.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening in Chicago. A lot of Chicago fans hitting me on Twitter, telling me it's the coaching's terrible. Nagy and those guys, just not good. I couldn't believe it. Why do you even have him if you're just going to have him stand back there like a statue? He's practically Joe Flacco.
He was supposed to be Cam Newton. That's what he was supposed to be.
I know he is. There's no reason for him to be back there with his feet in cement. But
Jason, when I see 9 sacks, I think of a slow drop back passer.
Right.
That's the only one who could possibly ever be sacked 9 times. I've never heard of a running quarterback being sacked 9 times. Have you?
9 times.
I have never heard of anything like that.
No,
he should have been able to get away more than that.
It's brutal. It's brutal. All right. So here's a good player that I wanted to ask you about that, he's a wide receiver. To me, he's a wide receiver one, gets a ton of targets, but he's in a real tough environment this week. So I'm wondering what you would do with him, or how low would it have to be. But Deontay Johnson from with the Steelers at home. So I like that. I like that he's in Hines this week against the Denver Broncos in there. Your thoughts?
Johnson's been the only receiver so far worth a crap for Pittsburgh. Juju has disappeared. Claypool hurt. Is he hurt, Jason?
He was hurt last week. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if Claypool's back or not. And of course, Big Ben is still hurt. He's banged up all over. Still, to me, Johnson is still has great upside. He's the one guy we're starting. I wouldn't even think of starting Juju right now. But Deontay, I do like him. I think he's going to continue 10, 11, 12 targets this week.
Yep. You see how the Steelers, they have a new offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, this year, but it's still very much taking on what we saw last year, which is that Juju's running the very, very low average depth of target, ADOT, down the field. So he's very low. So he's catching the ball practically like screen pass territory. So he's like an additional running back catching the ball out there. And then Claypool, they only use on, 3 receiver sets. So they don't always do that. They run a lot of 12 personnel with 1 running back, two tight ends. So that leaves Johnson as the guy that really is a prime candidate. I agree. I would play him this week. The only thing I would consider is if you're only starting 2 wide receivers, and they're both like Deebo Samuel and Keenan Allen, something like that. That's the only way that I could keep Deontay on the bench this week. Is you only start 2, but if you have a flex, I find it hard to believe that there's more people out there that will do more than Deontay Johnson. Any other wide receivers stick out to you in there?
Well, back to the Giants. Kenny Golladay finally busted out.
Yeah.
Good to see that because
Kind of had to at that.
Yeah.
They were, like you said, they didn't really have anybody else. They finally took Shepard and Slayton away. And Danny was like, well, I guess I'll throw to this new guy.
Yeah, and I kind of like the combination of Galladay and Tony
Yeah.
more than no. I haven't heard a status on those other two receivers. Have you heard anything whether or not they're going to play this week? Have you heard anything?
No, I have not. And I think you would want to wait till Friday anyway, just to see if everybody's practices and starts anyway, even if they had, the early part of the week off. You always want to look at that Friday practice schedule to get an idea. They go through a full practice, or were they still limited and be game day decision? I think that's kind of your deciding line there.
But I mean, the Giants have two guys, Barkley and Tony, who can take a 5-yard pass and go the distance. Daniel Jones has a better surrounding cast than I think a lot of us gave him credit for. And having a 400-yard game, hey, maybe it's the start of a few fireworks out there in New York.
Yeah, I mean, they were even playing Bengals cast off John Ross last week.
Yeah, so, John Ross, who's still blazing fast, right?
Still fast, still has that speed skill down there. But yeah, some interesting stuff. I do like seeing Kadarius Toney. He's special. If you've never watched him play, Aaron and I both had the pleasure of seeing him play for our alma mater, University of Florida. He is special to watch. You won't believe some of the things he can do when he has the ball, just avoiding tackles and making extra yards. He did one set of moves this past week that I think it netted 0 yards total when he ducked in, but just the joystick ability to be able to get through that is something special. All right, now let's say you have Amari Cooper playing against the Giants, and you also were looking at let's say Jacoby Myers, New England against Houston. Which do you think there? Who would you go with in that matchup?
I think, isn't Amari Cooper banged up, Jason?
He is banged up, but I think he was expected to play.
Expected to play? I was just trying to verify that. Yeah, he's banged up, but he played through it.
Yeah.
Well, there's so much more upside for I just have a hard time trusting rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And New England's offense it doesn't thrill me. I can see a receiver having a big week one week and then disappearing the next. I still like Cooper in that situation.
Yeah. The only thing that gives me pause, I agree. I think you bet on Dak Prescott and that but there are a lot of targets in Dallas, and it's tough. The only thing that gives you pause is that defensively, I know Houston just got crushed, but they're a bit of a run defense too. So, I mean, they're a bit of a pass defense only. So I think if you've seen what's going on, I agree with Aaron that, you have a run funnel defense, and Belichick's been willing to run the ball. So, going back to the running backs, maybe even Damon Harris sticks his neck in there on a flex play for you this week. Rather than, bet on that. Anything else on wide receivers before we move on?
I don't think so. Let's move on.
All right, we'll quickly review the tight ends situation. And my guy last week, I'm just kidding. The Bengals, CJ Uzomah went off 2 touchdowns last week. Aaron Bland, who do you think, if you look at the schedule beyond Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, Hawkinson, and I'll even throw Andrews in there. Who's a 2 touchdown guy that we may not be expecting out of the tight end position? If there's someone streaming tight ends this week, who would you call?
Well, I keep pimping Jared Cook, and he finally broke out as well with
great 4th down catch.
70 yards of a touchdown.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, he's worth starting. Oh gosh, let's take a look here. Oof. The Patriots, they signed those 2 tight ends.
Yeah.
For a combined about $100 million in the
Unbelievable.
offseason.
Yeah.
And they used them both last week. They both scored touchdowns.
Yep.
They just, the problem is one or the other would be great, but both of them, I expect them both to actually probably have decent games against the Texans. I'm just trying to look over here, see if there's anybody else. Dallas Goedert is another one who would probably be having a huge year if Zach Ertz hadn't hung around.
Yeah.
unexpectedly, and they're splitting time out there. Tyler Higbee has been
Yeah.
used a little more. He may be due a little bit for a breakout, Jay. Thursday night, maybe they can rely a little bit more on Higbee than throwing giving Cooper 25 targets like they've been doing.
I know Cooper Kupp has kind of sucked all the oxygen out of that pass offense, and guys like Higbee running a lot of routes, doing well good. I like Mike Gesicki too in Tampa. It's hard to run on those guys, and you want to throw the football. I think if you're looking for kind of a flyer 2-touchdown guy, Gesicki could do it. Man, you hate to put your eggs in the Jacoby Brissett basket there on there, but and Dalton Schultz playing very well for Dallas. A game against the Giants, you can always take a shot at it there. And then finally, a guy that I've always liked, but kind of a thing. What do you think about Dawson Knox in Buffalo in the primetime game against the Chiefs this week?
Well, he definitely seems to be getting more involved. Big time physical guy.
Yeah.
In that game, he's as good a bet as anybody, because I just think they're going to have to score, and he's the kind of guy you forget about when receivers are running out for Buffalo. Jason, a similar deal where you're going to have to score. Evan Ingram, another forgotten man, extremely talented, hurt all the time, but he's back. He's been playing again in a shootout. So Daniel Jones has some pretty good targets. Ingram's probably a guy sitting on your waiver wire.
Yeah.
A
lot of these, if you're streaming tight ends, I totally agree. You take your chances there with Danny Dimes throwing the football around. It's funny because we talked about Daniel Jones in our week 2 podcast, and as a kind of a but still his running was a factor there, and I think he's kind of a sneaky stream play when you have it out there. So if you're in a 2 QB league, you definitely can check that out. But I agree, Evan Ingram's got the pedigree and definitely could spike up at any given time. All right, well, that's a look. Of course, if you're playing defenses, good luck to you out there. The roll of the dice, depending on how you score your defensive category.
Start New England. Whoever's
right.
playing the Texans should be the number 1 defense of the week.
I think I never saw a defensive score as high as Buffalo's without a touchdown. I mean, they didn't have a touchdown yet. They still put a gigantic number on the board when you're talking about, crazy, crazy numbers there. The 4 picks and all the sacks they got, just absolutely mind blowing. All right. Any final thoughts on week 5 before we head on out of here?
No, I mean, it's we enjoy one of these weeks again with no buys. We haven't come up on the buy season yet. Everybody hates buys. When we get to that, we'll have more discussion about, bye week replacements. But hey, enjoy these full schedules while you can before the annoying bye weeks start.
That's true. And come back to YouRulz. We'd like to say we'll have our position by position rankings available for you to reference on there. Sign up and get involved, and feel free to look for me on Twitter at Jason Walker DFS out there. And happy to answer any questions you might have along the way. For the great Aaron Bland, I'm merely Jason Walker saying, play it your way with YouRulz. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Jason.